Hey,
Yeah?
you ever wonder why we're here?
It's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? Why are we here? Are we the product of some cosmic coincidence? Or is there really a God watching everything? You know, with a plan for us and stuff. I don't know, man. But it keeps me up at night.
What? I mean, why are we out here in this canyon?
Oh, yeah.
Like, seriously, where the fuck even are we? This doesn't look anything like Lordran at all. This better not be another goddamn remaster.
Hey, so, what are they doing now?
Hello there, boyos! Today I have some absolutely incredible stuff to show you all, and considering how long it's been since my last video, it goddamn should be. So let's start this off by rolling it back a few months to where this whole project began. As with all of my dumb videos, it started with a vague idea. I wanted to make a custom map for Dark Souls, something that only one other person had really done at the time. That living legend was, of course, Drop-Off. So I ended up talking with him and he gave me some really good direction on where to start. And honestly, without his initial help, none of this would have been possible, and I cannot express how much I appreciate that. So after a few days of messing around in multiple different versions of 3ds Max, I got a very basic workflow established and managed to import this beautiful rectangle with a random meme image I had lazily wrapped around it. Oh, majestic. This is one of those things that looks incredibly trivial or silly, but was actually a really pivotal moment. This was proof that I could indeed build some kind of mod for the game, though at the time I still wasn't completely certain of what it was I actually wanted to do. But what I did know was that Dark Souls absolutely needed 100% more Blood Gulch in it. And so that is what came next. And you may be thinking that I just popped that model into the game and it looked absolutely flawless like this, with fully ray-traced light maps and beautiful shading. But in reality, modding is never that easy. The first successful import of Blood Gulch, after days of tweaking and experimenting, looked something like this. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. And the problems I was facing with this project at that point were pretty massive. The tool I was using to convert Autodesk FBX models into From Software's proprietary Flavor format was very unfinished. While it could get models into the game, it could not properly map out the material information, and as a result, I could only use a handful of basic shaders. So with quite a bit of advice from Meow Meredith and Drop-Off, I pulled the Git repo for FBX to Flavor and, learned C#. Now I'm not going to go too much into the code of this because it's really dry and technical, but I'll just summarize and say that it's a miracle this program still works after everything I did to it. The updated program has a bunch of really important key features for developing maps. The most notable of these was proper support for every material in the game, and the ability to import multiple UV and vertex color channels. And so with this new program, I was able to turn that gross, badly shaded, unlit, and blurry Blood Gulch into something that I think Master Chief would approve of. And so now I had a pretty decent looking map with nothing in it. So I decided to familiarize myself more with the game engine by populating it with some enemies and scripting some boss fights. Most of this was pretty intuitive and straightforward, copying and adjusting parameters, merging script binds, and just dropping stuff into the map. But eventually it came time to add a bonfire. And at the time, still being very new to working with the game, I downloaded Hot Pocket Remix's script decompiler, a tool that takes the compiled EMEVD scripts and breaks them down into this. This is about as obfusc as code can possibly get. I spent the better half of 2 days breaking this all down and slowly mapping out how it worked. And eventually I was able to add a bonfire to the map, as well as a very simple but functional boss fight. I still had a lot of questions though, and I ended up asking for some help in the modding Discord. And of course, I immediately got asked what the fuck I was doing, shortly followed by a link to an IDE that has all the functions fully mapped out and even came with a nice autocomplete feature. Oof. Needless to say, scripting got about 1,000 times easier from that moment onwards, and development went very smoothly until the mod eventually reached a playable state. The finished mod has quite a variety of content with plenty of enemies to stab you, some custom Black Knight boss fights to slash you, and even a surprise Taurus demon to smash you. But my favorite thing in this map is a super duper secret NPC called Epic Hacker. I partnered with Elon Musk to create a deep neural network AI in order to make the most lifelike NPC of all time. 101% of players can't tell the difference between this NPC and a real hacker. And no, this is not a ruse. I did actually code the NPC to spam "well, what is it?" over and over and over after killing you. Your move, script kiddies. So yeah, that was pretty much it for this Blood Gulch map experiment. I learned a lot of interesting stuff about the Dark Souls game engine, and there was definitely more than a few mistakes made while putting this together, but it turned out pretty neat. But as you can probably tell, this video is nowhere near over, because one little custom map just isn't enough for me. I needed more. And with that, I shelved the Blood Gulch mod and started anew with a clean canvas. This time with a clear picture of what I wanted to do, and with the necessary experience needed to get it done. This is the Battle of Stoicism. Very few players even know what this is, and even fewer have actually spent some time participating in it. It's a really odd piece of content that had the potential to be great if it weren't for a few questionable design decisions. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Before I can even start trying to improve this mess, I have to actually figure out how it works. And so began the very daunting task of reverse engineering the Battle of Stoicism. And boyo, if you thought Dark Souls netcode was bad, I do not recommend looking into how this arena works. It's 25% hard-coded special effects states, 25% nonsensical unsynced script calls, 25% manually unrolled loops, and 100% reason to just blow yourself up because it's not worth it. On top of all that, modding Dark Souls comes with its own special challenge.
Japanese.
For those of you who aren't aware, Dark Souls is a Japanese game, and as a result, a lot of the internal descriptors and variable names are in Japanese. Of course, the obvious answer is to just use Google Translate to figure out what's what, but that can become very tedious when faced with the absolute mountain of squiggly lines that this game contains. And after a while, I got really fed up with this and developed a tool that I like to call Moonrune Demolisher. And MRD does exactly as its name suggests. It opens Dark Souls source files, extracts all the Japanese text, sends it to the Google Translate Cloud API, and then writes the resulting translation back to the file. And just for context, I only ran this program once to translate the game, and it made over 25,000 calls to the Google Translate API. Now that is a spicy meatball. So now that I had somewhat readable code, I was finally able to work through and fully document how the Battle of Stoicism works. And after battling through a myriad of bugs, I was able to more or less hijack the system that the arena uses to start matches and respawn players. This essentially allows me to redirect the Battle of Stoicism to a custom map. It definitely wasn't an elegant solution, but it works. Now it's time to talk about how I plan to improve the Battle of Stoicism. There are a few core issues with the arena that I think are really holding it back from its full potential. The first major issue with them is the level layouts. One of them is just a box. And the other was a series of ruins that might have been somewhat interesting if it weren't for the fact that all 4 players spawn right in the middle, and there's no reason to go anywhere else on the map because there's nothing on it. So you essentially had the choice between a small flat box and a large flat box. Now my solution here is pretty obvious. I mean, it's literally the title of the video. And so I made a rather Herculean effort and ported 4 more maps into Dark Souls. The actual process of doing so being refined more and more as I worked on it. And the results were pretty friggin' neato, if you ask me. So the next issue I want to address with the Battle of Stoicism was a lack of map flow. One of the things that all old school shooters have in common is power-ups. Sometimes it's a core perched precariously in the center of the map, or sometimes it's a rocket launcher placed high up on top of a stone arch. The point being, without power-ups, there is no incentive to move through the map, and the map has no flow. But by strategically placing power-ups all over, and weighting the best power-ups by placing them in riskier locations, you can make a map substantially more interesting. So I created power-ups for Dark Souls. There's quite a few of them, so I won't spend too much time on this, but here's a couple of them in action. Here we have the Rage power-up. It makes you deal 50% more damage, but at the same time you also take 50% more damage.
No!
Then of course we have the Invisibility power-up that makes you harder to see and makes other players unable to lock onto you. And here is the Mega Agility power-up that dramatically lightens your equip load, negates fall damage, and allows you to ninja flip. Then of course we have the Super Speed power-up, which makes your character 10% faster. This one is actually really scary and is usually placed in the most difficult spot to reach on each map. Then finally we have my personal favorite, the Special Ammo power-up.
Oh no!
This power-up gives you a set of special arrows and bolts that can only be used in the arena.
No!
So after a lot of thorough testing to make sure everything worked properly and played well, I was finally ready to call the Battle of Stoicism rework complete. Now a normal, sane person would stop here and release this mod. But there was one more core issue that I had to take care of, and that was Dark Souls itself. Backstabs, dark magic, gold tracers, demon spears, and poise. Anyone who's played even just a little bit of Dark Souls PvP knows that this game isn't just broken, it's ascended to its own higher plane of omni-broken. Dark Souls is the Vivek of bad netcode and janky PvP. Now honestly, I never intended to rebalance the entire game. My original goal was just to make a handful of minor tweaks to try and make the gameplay a little bit better. But I got carried away. Really carried away. I guess it was kind of to be expected. You don't fix a game like Dark Souls with a few small tweaks. It has layers and layers of problems, and the only solution was to take the whole damn thing apart and do my best to polish each piece individually before putting it all back together. And over the course of a month or 3, who's counting anyway, I did just that. Now there is a literal mountain of changes I could talk about, but I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. So I'm just going to give a general overview and show particular things that I really like. The main objective of this part of the mod was to try and make everything viable. Dark Souls has a lot of weapons and spells that are just flat out bad. Sometimes it's because of frame data or damage or range, or it's just because there are other items that do the exact same thing, but better. But I think the number one thing that invalidates the majority of equipment and playstyles is backstabs. So that was the first thing I changed. Backstabs in this mod are no longer instantaneous. In order to backstab, you must either connect an attack on someone's back with a dagger, or kick them in the back while using any other type of weapon. This change also makes PvP backstabs victim side, meaning that you will almost never get face stabbed in PvP. And as an added bonus, it gives daggers an actual purpose in the game as the best weapon for actually landing backstabs. This change also quite obviously makes backstabbing a lot harder than the original game, which I believe is a major improvement. Backstabs don't just over-centralize the PvP of Dark Souls, they also over-centralize the PvE as well. For every enemy in Dark Souls that can be backstabbed, the go-to strategy that most players use is to fish for backstabs. It's that deadly combination of high damage paired with ease of execution. And of course, backstabs can be chained, making it an endless cycle of free hits. So fuck it. We are a strong, independent chosen undead, and we don't need no easy backstabs. Parrying has always been cooler anyways. The next mechanical change I made was to improve guard breaks. In the base game, they were pretty much pointless. Guard breaking an opponent was very difficult to do, and the window to punish someone afterwards was really small. So I made the obvious change. Guard breaks are now repostable. This only really applies to PvP though. Changing it for every enemy in the game would be incredibly painful to do. Some more minor mechanical changes I added were the ability to aim crossbows like bows, time blocking to disincentivize hiding behind your shield, and damage penalties for casting sorceries and pyromancies while wearing extremely heavy armor. I also significantly improved blocking with weapons, as it was pretty much suicide in the base game. And I drastically buffed kicking so it can more consistently break guards now. A couple of really heavy weapons also received limited hyper armor on their attacks. This only applies to heavy attacks though, and only covers a handful of weapons like Smo's Hammer and the Demon Great Axe. For magic, I removed the dexterity-based spell casting speed bonuses and instead added a ring to the game that increases casting speed, as well as making certain catalysts faster than others to help diversify them a bit. Additionally, most of the Covenant Lock spells have had their restrictions removed, so now you can finally use these miracles without having to be in a pointless covenant. And finally, a change for all you Care Bear White Phantoms out there, I have removed multiplayer restrictions from pretty much every single area in the game. You can now co-op in places like Ash Lake, Northern Undead Asylum, Valley of Drakes, and even Firelink Shrine. And this also removes multiplayer restrictions on boss kills and area events. You can now summon and be invaded in areas even after you've killed all the bosses, and you no longer have to die to Seath or lower the water in New Londo in order to do multiplayer in those areas. Everything is now a multiplayer zone right from the very start. And as a final little bonus, I adjusted the fog gates for many areas, making them more open. You can now summon at Undead Burg and trek all the way up to the parish to chill out with your boy Andre, then head all the way back down to Lower Burg and kill Capra Demon. And I guess now is a good time to address a concern that some of you might have about this mod. Obviously, this is intended to be played online with other players, and you might be wondering if you will get banned or if the mod will break if you get invaded by someone in the vanilla game. Well, fear not, because thanks to Metal Crow, this mod actually runs on a separate game version and will not connect to other players unless they are also running the same version of this mod. And fun fact, you literally cannot get banned from Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition. It has 0 anti-cheat. Next up, let's talk about weapons. Pretty much every single weapon in the game has been tweaked at least a little bit, though a lot of them are very small or subtle changes. For example, all straight swords have had the startup frames of their light attack improved a little bit, and all of the maces and axes have had their AR increased slightly. But those kind of changes are not super interesting, and you probably won't even notice them. Now, what I want to talk about here is the big changes, like how all the fist weapons are now faster, stronger, and you can even feint attacks by rolling out during the startup frames. You know, the cool changes. Like seriously, behold the glory of the brand new Dragon Buff Fist. Or if fisting isn't your style, how about whips? They are now faster with early animation cancels and they completely bypass shields. Yeah, that's right, my dudes. Every single attack shield pierces. Respect the whip, fear the whip. But what about ranged weapons though? Did they get any love? Well, of course they did. Bows now draw faster, crossbows reload faster, bolts and arrows fly faster, and they all do more damage. And the great bows, well, the great bows do a lot more damage. Like enough damage to be actually kind of terrifying, which is how they goddamn should be. Next up, I want to show you guys a couple of weapons that received complete reworks. The pickaxe is now a super powerful but short-range strength weapon. It's heavy and clunky, but it's got an S in strength, and if you land a counter hit, you will literally vaporize people. The crescent axe is no longer a goofy-looking battle axe, and is instead a proper two-handed pole axe like it was in Demon Souls. It has really solid scaling now too, so it should work well on a hybrid faith build. The Golem Axe and Butcher's Knife also received a similar rework to the Crescent Axe and are now big boy weapons with fairly unique movesets. And of course, the Wooden Hammer now has its own unique hybrid moveset and deals absolutely massive lightning damage. Now I hear you guys asking, where is the flashy stuff? We want flashy stuff. Well then, my friend, how about this? Or if that isn't to your liking, what about one of these? Okay, alright, you're pretty hard to please. Last chance, here we go. How does this strike your fancy? Are you satisfied? I sure hope not, because next up we have magic. And that's where the flashiness goes to 11, and the frame rate also goes to 11. Another major goal I had when rebalancing Dark Souls was to try and remove all of the filler spells. Why exactly do sorcerers need 6 different versions of Soul Arrow? Short answer, they don't. So I took out pretty much every filler spell and tried to rework it into something unique. This is Soul Ray. It's a short beam that does low damage, but it's incredibly fast. It doesn't have quite the same punch as Soul Arrow, but it's great at hitting small, fast targets, and it can penetrate through multiple enemies at once. It's also a really solid mix-up in PvP that can easily catch people off guard. This is the new Heavy Soul Arrow. It now fires a barrage of 3 Soul Arrows instead of just 1 strong one. And Heavy Soul Ray does pretty much the same thing, but faster. And might I say, this spell is really scary in PvP. Hey, remember when Dark Souls had 3 different versions of put blue stuff on your weapon? Not anymore. You now have Soul Weapon and Crystallize Weapon. The first is your traditional magic damage weapon buff, and the second is a magic debuff that is applied on hit. This debuff absolutely booty blasts your opponent and amplifies any spells you hit them with for a few seconds. Good luck trying to figure out a build around this one. Next up, we have Soul Dart, which fires a barrage of projectiles straight forward and can do a lot of damage if they all connect. And here we have a weird one, Deflection. It puts a bubble around you for 15 seconds that deflects all projectiles. This can be really useful for certain parts of the game, and can be an absolute troll to people in PvP trying to use ranged builds. And keeping with our weird trend, our next spell is Conversion. This is a buff that converts 50% of your max health into max stamina. As we all know, running out of stamina is for nerds. Now this one isn't really a spell, it's actually a melee attack for some of the sorcery catalysts. The original game's Staff Bop was incredibly pointless as it only did like 8 damage, so I gave all of the catalysts their own special attacks. You know, maybe I should give this a name or something, like maybe some kind of art that you use your weapon to do. Our next sorcery is Crystal Mass. It places a delayed explosion of crystals on the ground in front of you. This is a very niche spell, but I found it to be a very tricky mix-up in PvP. This next one is also not a spell, but it is the weapon art of the 10 crystallization catalyst, based off of Soul Geyser from Dark Souls 2. It is quite devastating, but the int requirement to use it is hefty. And now for our 2 capstone sorceries, Crystal Storm and Soul Roots. Soul Roots is a very short 10-second buff that nearly doubles the power of your sorcery, but makes you unable to move for the duration. To put it simply, you either one-shot the boss, or you die. And Crystal Storm, well, it does this. I sure hope that's flashy enough for you guys. But what about the dark magics? And more specifically, that dark magic? Well, fear not, because Dark Bead is actually balanced now. For the most part, all the dark magic spells function the same as before, but now have more reasonable damage and are more dependent on physical scaling. In fact, a full-on dark muscle mage is actually pretty strong now. The only notable change in functionality is that Dark Fog now melts people instead of poisoning them, and the few catalysts that have good physical scaling for dark magic now have a special dark magic weapon art, too. Oh, and the Manus catalyst is now cool. Really cool. Alrighty, we are now moving on to Miracles. Demon Souls Wrath of the God was cooler. Fight me nerds, we're using this one. Do you like lightning? Because we got lightning. We have so much lightning. We have the coolest fucking lightning. Most of the other miracles have been adjusted or buffed in various ways, but there are 2 more custom ones. Gravelord's Sword Strike, which functions exactly like Nito's attack and sends the nearest enemy into orbit. And Sacred Oath, which is an AoE buff that grants a variety of small bonuses like increased physical attack, HP, stamina, and physical defense. And of course, the talismans also got their own special weapon art. It's Perseverance from Dark Souls 3. I'm a fraud. I'm literally stealing ideas from Dark Souls 3. SMH my head. Pyromancy time. I think we can all agree that Pyromancy is definitely the hottest type of magic. There are so many badass, powerful pyromancies throughout the series, like Forbidden Sun and Flame Swath. So what did I decide to bring to the table here? Immolation, baby! I just had to do it to him. There was never an option not to bring this spell to Dark Souls 1. The joke is that it's actually good in this game. The damage scales properly, and while you're on fire, your pyromancies deal slightly more damage as well. Your move, entire Dark Souls 2 design team. Have you ever wanted to vomit lava? Because in this mod, you can vomit lava, and you're gonna like it. And once you're done vomiting lava, you can then cast Warmth to heal yourself back up. And also your buddies too. And also the boss, why not? Just everybody get in here. Most of the other pyromancies are basically the same with minor tweaks. All 3 of the misspells now last twice as long, and Acid Surge now causes bleeding, making it actually useful for a change. Fire Whip spells now push enemies back and actually deal significant damage, making them way more usable. Oh, and Chaos Storm now takes 4 attunement slots and does this. I hope you guys have fun with that. Now, on to rings. And when it comes to rings in Dark Souls, we all know there are 3 rings in this game that need to be nerfed into the ground. Health, stamina, endurance. Everything you could possibly ever want, but not anymore. The Ring of Favor now gives much smaller bonuses, meaning it's no longer a mandatory pick on just about every build. And it also no longer breaks when being taken off, meaning you don't have to permanently commit to it. Havel's Ring also got the same treatment, and its effect is severely reduced. And of course, the Dog Ring has also been similarly nerfed to prevent it from suddenly being the best ring in the game. And now I should probably stop and talk about armor adjustments before I give the entire competitive scene a massive simultaneous heart attack. Poise and equip load are really broken in Dark Souls. So broken, in fact, that there is no simple, straightforward solution where I just change 2 or 3 values and it magically becomes perfectly balanced. In fact, I don't even know if it's possible to properly balance poise and weight, but I gave it my best shot here. In order to manage this, I wrote a cute little program called Param Remix. This program allows me to make batch changes to equipment and items in the game. In short, it rebalances the weight of armor and weapons on separate curves and compresses poise values towards a median. The equation I used looks something like this, but you can be forgiven if the code is too slapdash to make any real sense of it. The gist of this, though, is that I nerfed the rings that give equip load, but also made equipment lighter to compensate. I also compressed poise values, which essentially means that the highest poise value and the lowest poise value are now closer together. And yes, this means that all equipment now has poise. Most light armor will only give you 3 or 4 poise per piece, but it means that you will at least always have some amount. And the maximum poise value is no longer in the hundreds, but is closer to 80. As for the weight changes, weapons that were unmanageably heavy, like the Demon's Great Axe or Smo's Hammer, are now considerably lighter, but light weapons like katanas and straight swords are pretty much exactly the same as they were. Armor, on the other hand, is the reverse of this. Armor sets that are heavy are now really heavy and provide significantly higher defense. If you put on full Havels in this mod, you will be an absolute tank, but you will also be the heaviest object in the known universe. Sorry, my dudes, but there will be no more ninja flipping giant dads on my watch. Now, luckily, with all the other changes in this mod, fat rolling is actually not such a bad thing anymore. The removal of instant backstabs from PvP makes mid-rolling and even fat rolling a fairly viable playstyle. So hey, maybe give the heavy lifestyle a try. So now that we've covered that, we can go right back to the rings. The majority of the rings in the game received only slight adjustments, but by nerfing the big 3, I've technically already buffed every other ring in the game. So I'll just go over the ones that got the biggest changes. The Poison and Bloodbite rings now give absolutely massive resistance and are much cheaper to buy from Oswald. The Blue Tearstone ring now activates at half health and gives you some really thick defensive bonuses. The Chloranthy ring now increases both your max stamina and stamina regen. The Dark Moon Seance ring now increases your spellcasting speed and gives 1 extra attunement slot. The Dusk Crown ring still gives you 50% more spellcasts, but does not reduce your max health anymore, making it actually pretty good. The Tiny Beings ring and Sun Princess ring now give slight health regeneration on top of their existing effects. Using both of them along with spells and other equipment can make a pretty powerful health regeneration build. The Slumbering Dragon ring now gives fall damage immunity and the silence effect. And finally, the Calamity ring now does something. And wow, after all of that, I still haven't even covered half the damn changes in this mod. It's just that thick. So I'll leave you guys with this. I restored some of the game's cut content, I buffed the Pierce Shield, and I gave Pinwheel more health. The rest you'll just have to figure out for yourselves. And so that's the end of the story, right? Surely the mod was finally finished and I was ready to release it. Right? Right? Now I really shouldn't have, but one day I was talking with Metalcrow in Discord and he mentioned his player limit extension for Dark Souls. Essentially, it allows you to summon as many phantoms as you want with no limits. Now this got me thinking, wouldn't it be neat to play Big Team Battle on Blood Gulch in Dark Souls? I mean, I'd have to build an entire matchmaking system and design areas and items to accommodate it, and then I'd have to write thousands upon thousands of lines of very complex and temperamental script to manage these arena areas and keep the game sessions running, and then I'd have to actually design game types like Capture the Flag from scratch in a game that does not even have the concept of a game type in it. Oh, and not to mention that I'd have to cope with lots of potential unforeseen bugs that can manifest while designing something like... It's already done. I did it. Look at this absolute mountain of script. This is capture the goddamn flag in Dark Souls. Do you even understand how this works? I don't even understand how this works. Literally no one fucking knows what this does. This code just appeared in my backyard, etched into a monolith. Aliens created it. Miyazaki is an alien. You know, I'm sorry, I just can't express how utterly twisted this thing is. The Battle of Stoicism arena in the vanilla game is already a complicated mess, but this thing that I've created is absolutely arcane. I'm honestly shocked that it works after all the issues I had building it. So this is InfernoPlus. It has 3 maps and 2 game types with a max player limit of 18. The first game mode is Team Deathmatch, which is a simple first to 30 kills game mode, and the second is Capture the Lizard. Yeah, the flags are lizards and they ride on top of your head. It adds a 100% adorability bonus to the game. The first team to steal the other team's lizard and bring it back to their base wins. Completely standard CTF rules with away scoring disabled because away scoring is for posers. And yes, this does all actually work. There are definitely some little harmless bugs here and there, but honestly it's not any buggier than the rest of the game, so I'll call it a win. So now that all the explanations are done, we can finally sample some of that gameplay. Alright, guys. So what was the fucking best spell in Dark Souls 2?
Climax.
No.
Oh, Forbidden Sun, I'd say.
Immolation, dude.
What is this? I have a feeling Pat's sneaking around.
It is now, Harry. What makes you say that?
Double kill.
I'm gonna say heal up real quick.
No.
No, don't do that. No, don't do that.
Little fucking snake chicken wing. I got them thing.
You earned the knife.
Can't man most down lounge. Gangsters paradise.
Nice
You got
heal.
in your head some shot. Oh, nice shot.
Oh my god.
No. Oh.
Harry, go get the thing.
Fucking look at this boy flipping. He's flipping.
Why is that lizard here?
Yeah, why is there a lizard?
You got double.
You got both of them, oh my god.
Did I kill them both with one arrow?
Yeah. Fucking call that boy. Nice.
Shit. Hey guys, I'm here to PvP and have
Bonk. This really is just fucking bullying with great bows at this point.
Do it, Dan.
Who dare smite me?
me.
Yeah, this. Yeah.
No, not the synchronized point up.
Somebody come out and fight me in the waterfall. Have a 1v1 on the thing.
Alright. I'm on my way. Oh my god, are you fucking...
I'm next. No.
Yeah! Oh! Look at Boo.
I'm alive! Oh god!
Get out here.
No! I got both of you at once! Holy shit!
What the?
Double backstab!
What the fuck, man? It's over. I'm done.
Alright, so time for the wrap up. If you would like to download and play the mod, you can find the link in the description. This mod is for Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition. It does not work with the remaster, and there are a million reasons why, so please don't ask. I would if I could, sorry. If you'd like to see some longer, more ranty videos about this project, be sure to check out my second channel. I'll have some videos talking in detail about how this mod was built, and I'll also do some live streams with viewers, so I can hopefully see all the stupid builds you guys come up with. Link to my second channel also in the description. Now, normally this is where I'm supposed to shill my Patreon or whatever. Instead, I want to specifically thank the people who made this project possible, and I want you guys to check these guys out and send them your support if you can. Drop off for his help with custom maps, Meowmeritus for developing many of the tools used to build this project, Catalash for developing the absolutely incredible DS Map Studio, Metalcrow for providing the DS Overhaul add-on, TKGP for the Souls Format API, Hot Pocket Remix for the script decompiler, and George for lots of helpful advice. And finally, I want to thank everyone who contributed to the project and helped beta test. Especially Dwiz, Nosa, and Day, who spent a stupid amount of hours helping me test multiplayer sync for the mod. For everyone else, there is a giant wall of notice boards in the mod, and good luck finding your name in there. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and let me know what you want to see next. I've got plenty of beautifully cursed mod ideas for Dark Souls or Halo, or maybe even Bubsy 3D. So have a nice day, and don't forget to buy poison arrows.